Yeah,
So let's
okay.
take a look ahead what they're going to
Yeah.
work on next. All right, the first thing that they say that they're going to work on next is that
Mhm.
surprise, they've been working on a combat overhaul this entire time and they just almost got it to release before the Steam launch, but it didn't quite work and they just need to do a bit of testing and it's coming. Surprise.
It's a bad. Yep. We
That's the
thought
first
you'd
trick.
we'd let you know this like a few weeks before we put it into the game. That's not what they said, but
Now,
it
how,
brought
how
back
did
memories
everybody
of
sort of react to that paragraph? I mean, I'm paraphrasing just a little bit, just a smidge.
yeah.
Uh,
I'm so torn with this one because I'm so happy that combat was on their list of things that they're working on. So happy, like
here's the
ecstatic,
thing: if you
because
actually read the paragraph, yeah, how do people think when they read that they're working on a combat? I mean, I'm going to quote him here: a combat overhaul. That is the words he used. No, sorry, he said a large combat overhaul.
I'm just reading. I'm trying to catch up with the chat. It's like I'm trying to figure out
Sorry if
what's
if
happening
we
here.
don't respond to you guys. We're trying our best.
Yeah,
What are your
it
first
does
thoughts on that?
on fighting, on
Yes.
combat overhaul. I mean, again, I just said my first thoughts, and they were: I'm happy that they're working on combat. I am terrified that they've been working on combat for this long, because like why I'm terrified is because I don't want to be disappointed with what gets announced about it. Um, I really am so hopeful that the combat overhaul is something that sort of meets the expectations of the Worm community, um, or potentially even exceeds the expectations of the Worm community.
Well, we don't know what they're
Um,
doing. Just like,
don't know what they're doing. Yeah,
but like,
we have
we
some
just.
words.
What are
We,
the
we
first
can
thoughts that people have in
we
their
can
minds?
we can make some predictions about what we might think it will look like, but
Well, we
based
don't have
on
to make too much predictions. If you
okay,
read the paragraph that he wrote, it actually gives a little insight of how they were looking at what they were going to do to improve it. So let's take a look at that next.
okay, yeah, but
Um,
before that, let's look at text. The chat. I mean, I want to see what
yeah,
people are saying. So, Taiki, you're saying combat in PvE is awesome. Is it awesome like the way it is? You mean? And Katz is saying my first thoughts about time. Yeah, and Worming Zeth. Hello, pretty woman. Um,
I think that one's for you.
Drea. Treos is saying, I play on PvE. Why get into combat in open world? I just kill cows for leather and meat. You need more reason for
Hmm.
combat on. Okay, so your argument is that you need more reason to get into combat on PvP, and that's definitely
Yeah,
something that
I
we're
mean
going to talk
we've
about for
talked
sure.
about that in the
We've
past,
talked about that before.
like
Yeah,
not even that many episodes ago.
yeah. It's about the motivation for going out and doing combat, not just changing the mechanics of it. But yeah.
Hmm.
Um, Let me see. Anything else? Rippins, you're saying you don't care much for PvP, so you're basically associating combat with PvP, and you don't really care
Hmm.
that combat doesn't make any difference in PvE. I don't know. I don't know if everybody thinks that way though. Maybe some
You're
people will for
always
sure.
gonna have a split. Worm is not a combat focused game. It's not. So when they say we're working on combat, they're working on a subset of the game that only some players do.
Hmm.
And that's just what
Right.
it is, right?
Yeah, and Deathwin saying
Even
I don't
after
want
this
active
change,
combat.
yeah, combat will not be the focus of it.
Right.
And so,
So
so that's a good question. What did you just say there?
I'm just saying. I'm reading like a bunch of people are saying the similar things. So I'm just listing them. Deathwind is saying he
Hmm.
doesn't want active combat. Slider's saying what he thought meh, should should be good, but I don't care much either way. So like, there's going to be a large proportion of PVE players who feel this way that it's not really going to affect them because they don't really go fighting, and all they fight for is to get leather and materials for crafting, and that's the people who play the crafting side of this game for
Yeah.
sure. Um,
So Deathman, I'd be
here,
very curious to know, what do you mean by active combat? Because I know that there was some posts on the forums be like, "Oh, I don't want the combat for Worm to change,
to be
because I
to be
can't do Twitch
Twitch,
combat."
right?
And it's like, I hope they know what Twitch combat is, right? Because
Yeah.
that's
No,
not the only
just
option here,
it is. Yeah, is
and it
like here's the
wasn't
thing. I know
something
that
they would ever do.
people would not want Twitch combat, but and I'm not saying that this is something they should do, but what
Like,
about the type of combat of WoW, for example?
yeah, where
Uh,
did Twitch combat go? Yeah, I
yeah,
I don't
don't
think they've
do
ever
that.
will
But like,
mention that word, because that will
yeah,
not work in Worm, and they do not
but
want to do that.
I want to know, like,
It's
okay,
not what they're saying.
Twitch combat definitely bad. But what about a WoW target tab based system like you see in World of Warcraft or old school MMOs? Um, I mean, I don't know. Is that considered active combat?
Yeah, so I wonder, what does active combat or like mean? They have to do something.
Right,
Let
right.
Let's look
That
at
that you can't
what
just walk up
people
and
let's look at what people believe Worm combat is. And I say believe because this is what there's a difference to what we do, the mechanics behind it, and what actually happens. And so what we do is we sit in front of a mob. We try to make sure that we are at the correct distance, which is fairly easy, and we try to be on a horse or something to get above the mob. And we wait till it dies. Maybe we change the direction we're swinging once. But okay, so that's what we do, and then we wait, and then it dies. Um, what actually happens? So, what's actually happening if you're reading the combat window is that
right.
the mob itself is like changing the direction at where it's trying to hit you.
Hmm.
And it's hitting you on the leg, and it's hitting you on the head, and it's hitting you in different directions. And it doesn't matter to us because we get hit and we're going to heal it later. We just keep batting that mob.
Right.
So, and there's other things that are happening that you could do that we sometimes don't. Like, you could focus on the mob, which is kind of counterintuitive a little bit. Uh,
Right.
we can unlock special abilities we don't use because it doesn't do anything, really.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
we have the
Even when you get good
ability
at it, they don't do
we have the
much.
ability to change ahead of time, between aggressive, normal, and defensive types of combat. Which changes the stats or something that are used within the combat itself. We have the ability to block in different directions, which we don't use because,
Mm.
whatever. Like, why would we even block? What is the benefit of that? We
Right.
don't see the benefit of that at all. Um, but it's there. Right, let me target this guy right here. I probably should have put on my armor before that I did that. So we have the
What?
ability to change the defend left, defend up, top, defend right, defend bottom. Here, let's defend
Hmm.
top. What happened? Nothing, because it's in the combat window where it says you
Right.
shelter the higher parts of your body. And then
Right.
here, finally, it shows that I'm sheltering it. Why am I sheltering that part of the body? I don't
Who
know.
really reads the combat log? Exactly.
Yeah. So
PvP players read it. I'll tell
yeah,
you that
PvP
much.
players will read it. We don't read it because, I'm going to win this. Why do I care?
You're gonna win this whether
Uh,
or not you read it. Yeah.
but the point is, there are things in the game already that are supposed to drive interactivity between you and the mob.
Hmm.
And there are things that we ignore. So
Yep.
let's read one sentence of what Samul said.
Okay, you read that. I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay, so he says, uh, so the goal of the combat update will be to increase the interactivity and engagement of the combat. How are they going to do this? So they're going to do this by providing better visual feedback in combat. And then in brackets, he says, which will significantly reduce the need to read the combat chat. Let's think about that for a second. I just showed that I can defend the top. I don't know why I'm defending the top, but if you go into the combat window, it probably could say the seal is going to attack you from some sort of side, and then you could react to that. You could, if you were looking at it smart enough, and you'd be like, I'm gonna react to the left or react to the right. And so what he's trying to do, and we don't know how he's going to do this, but what we do know is that he's trying to make it so that they're going to take that combat log out of the combat window uh, and provide some sort of visual feedback to it so that we understand why we are blocking and doing things, why we need to use these things.
Right.
So if you had to ask me, I would say that we don't have to, one, we don't have to worry about Twitch. That wasn't even a word they used. It's nothing to do with the Worm combat system. But what I think we're going to end up getting is a combat system where we don't need to rely at all on the combat window, but it's just going to function exactly the same way as what we basically have now.
Hmm.
We're just going to use those features that we have now in a more thoughtful way, in a way that we understand
See,
better because we get actual feedback.
my hope is that at the very least, in addition to that, they tweak certain things. Like, I don't want to see just them add these visual things, and that's the only real change. Like, I know that they did mention like special moves might get a little bit of tweak, but I don't know. How much do they need to
Now,
tweak in addition to
could they
that?
do more? I don't know. We don't know. But yeah, the goal, and this shouldn't even be a thing just for combat. The goal for the entire game should be, how do I eliminate this window? And for Adam, I'm pointing to the combat slash event
Right.
window. How do
Right.
I make it so we don't have to rely on that window? That we can take the information from that window and display it
Right.
somehow in
Somewhere
the
else.
game. Now, it doesn't mean there wouldn't be a log. Logs are great. Logs give you information. But it
Right.
shouldn't be the way that shouldn't be what you rely on to do your everyday little things that you do, right?
Right.
So the
But
goal, which would be really hard, would be to remove the need for the event window to give you everyday basic information about how you're playing the game. And then to have the event log there for people that want to read it, right?
yeah, I'd agree with
What
that.
if I told you, and we're used to the event log, so we're used to the fact that we use the event log on a daily basis. That's why I sort of said, you know, minimize that for a bit, go around, do your thing, and look at the things that you're missing from your game. What are the things that you
Mhm.
rely on that event log? And how could they do that differently so that we still get the same information that the event log gives you, but without the need for that log? I mean, imagine if I were to tell you, like, if we were playing the game and we had to play the game with this window because there was really, and I'm looking at the Worm console window, and I was like, well, there's
Mm.
some really important information in this Worm console window, so we have to keep it open to read it. Would you
Right.
be okay with that? We don't do it now, but how about if
Right.
we did?
What if they added stuff to this window that you had to
And then
look
we
at
said,
that was vital
and then we
information
said,
for
well, now
playing?
they're trying to get rid of this window and now incorporate the things into the game itself.
Right.
I mean, it's different
Like,
feeling because we don't use it right now.
there are still some things that the Worm Online, like the Worm console, can do that aren't incorporated into the game. Like,
They're
there's a lot of stuff you could do with this thing. Um,
Hackermans. I was just saying, like we're coming from a situation where we rely on these. We're used to relying on these windows because that's just how it is.
yeah.
Uh,
I have a question.
but that's
These
not
two,
normal. Like it's not
these two
normally how
fences.
games work.
Oh, I just noticed something. Look how cool this is. The model for the wood fence. Where are you? Yeah, you see the model of the wood
Yeah, right
fence
here.
has this
Yeah.
little latch that sticks out of the stone. over here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Isn't that so cool? And then when it closes, the latch even like has a little. The other end has a little animation that goes up and down. I never noticed that. That's so cool. And they made that come right at the top of the gate. Like before, I felt like there was no gate that
Anyway,
would fit this fence, but I think this gate is designed particularly for this fence. And what were you planning on doing over here with this gap?
nothing.
Put
I
this gap
just
on
ran out of
purpose?
stone.
Okay, so
So anyway,
I'm
that's
gonna
my thoughts on combat. We're gonna just get more visual feedback within the game world based on
right,
the same sort of combat mechanic that we have.
right.
That's pretty much it.
I
That's what
am
we're gonna get.
okay with that update. If that's what it is, if that's what it ends up being, I know that you want more.
Anything
But
more would be a
but
bonus. Yeah.
but here's the thing. It's
Do
like
you
the
need
way that
more
the development
rocks at
works.
all?
I need one more. The way that the development in this game goes is that it's incremental, right? Like they add this thing now, and then they add another thing next time, and they add another thing, and over like the course of like 4 major updates, we see the system come into play, and becomes more cohesive. And I really think that the Worm team needs to have that forward thinking. Like they have to think of the next few systems and how those systems interact with everything that they're doing right now. So they're doing something now with combat that's going to lay the foundation, and they have to be forward thinking so that incorporated in that update is the forward sort of design that can lend itself to what they plan to do next.
Yeah. So we hope that with more devs coming, you're right, Deso.
Yeah, yeah,
More
yeah.
devs
More
coming,
devs.
maybe we'll have faster time between larger features.
Yep, yep, totally.
So that's the combat update that I
Yeah.
feel uh, that they're touting. They did say they're going to put it to the public testing, so I do recommend
Mm,
when they do that that everybody that has the time go and test it